Hello and welcome to this special interview for AdaniWatch. I'm Paranjoy Guha Thakurta, and I have with me here a member of parliament, a member of the upper house of India's parliament, the Rajya Sabha, who's been very, very vocal about Gautam Adani and the conglomerate he heads. I'm happy to welcome Mr. Jawhar Sircar. He was former Secretary Culture in the Government of India, spent more than 4 decades as a civil servant in the Indian Administrative Service, also headed India's public broadcast and resigned in 2016. Thank you, Mr. Sircar, for giving us your time. We are now in a situation where the Supreme Court will have to take a decision based on a report that will be provided to the Supreme Court by India's market regulator, SEBI, or the Securities and Exchange Board of India. There are 3 key phrases. One is related party transactions. 2, beneficial owner or ultimate beneficial owner. And finally, minimum public shareholding. If your shares are widely held and people can buy and sell it, at least 25% has to be available in the market. Otherwise, there will not be a fair price discovery and there could be manipulation. This is the logic. But it seems over the recent past, Mr. Sircar, these norms have been changed and tweaked to benefit, among others, the Adani conglomerate. What are your views in this regard?
It's not that the norms have been changed. The norms remain 25%. What has happened is they have misused that 25%. I mean, the reports are that, first of all, they got in portfolio investments from abroad to buy up large part of the 25% free shareholding, and therefore the persons representing them would be siding with them for corporate resolutions. So they gained an unfair advantage, violating the regulation. That is my way of looking at it. In addition to that, they got the public sector financial institutions involved. And
including the life insurance
Including the life insurance corporation. And in this particular regime after 2014, in any case, the public sector financial institutions look up to government and the ministry for a nod. What do I do in this case? It's always happened that way. That's why they're in the public sector. So a nod from this regime would necessarily mean a nod in favor of Adani. This can't be proved, but if one goes through the voting pattern, one goes through the shareholder resolutions, their board of director resolutions, one would find this quite evident. In other words, they crossed over the 25% barrier to buy up shares through companies that were indirectly owned by them. And therefore, they were violating the 25% barrier rule. That's exactly what the allegation is in different sources.
Mr. Sircar, a recent report which was published on the 31st of August by an international organization called the OCCRP, that is the Organized Crime and Corruption Reporting Project, and their findings were reported by the Financial Times and the Guardian. They pointed out that there were 2 associates, a Taiwanese person called Chang Chung Ling and a person based in the United Arab Emirates, Nazir Ali Shaban Ali. And they're saying they acted at the behest of Gautam Adani's older brother, who happens to be a citizen of Cyprus, and they all went through a Bermuda-based fund.
2 of them.
That's right. And that's how the shares were allegedly rigged. That is the sum and substance of the allegations in the report of the OCCRP. However, the Adani Group categorically rejects these allegations, and I'm going to tell you a little bit more. They say that this organization has been funded by interests like George Soros's organizations. I'm going to come to that in greater detail, but they are saying that they've got a clean sheet from a Supreme Court appointed panel, and they believe that all these allegations are without any basis. However, those who have prepared this report, the three journalists who put together the report, Anand Magnale, Ravi Nair and NBR Arcadio, they are saying that, look, these are the documents that we are providing, and that's clear evidence in these documents. And what is the Securities and Exchange Board of India doing about it? This is, again, I'm summarizing a very, very complex phenomenon, because you'll have to show charts about how the funds are moving from one jurisdiction to another jurisdiction to a third jurisdiction. But essentially, what the OCCRP report is doing is establish what is called round tripping of the proceeds of over-invoicing, allegedly to manipulate share prices in India.
Well, that's what has been reported largely by Hindenburg first. They have given the hints, and the meat has been sort of provided now by the OCCRP report. This can't be a matter of conjecture. It has to be a matter of proof. Now, one thing that sort of mystifies me, that if the Hindenburg report caused me a loss of $100 billion,
$140 billion.
Okay, $140 billion. Why is Adani not taking them to court, international courts? Why is he not taking? Why is he ranting about being a nationalist who's being hounded out, being targeted by a capitalist rival? Why is he indulging in such rhetoric?
I'll just give you a set of facts. The Hindenburg research report came out on the 24th of January, 2023. It's now, as we are talking, September is about to come to an end.
8 months, 9 months clear. 8 months. Now, that is precisely the point, that why aren't you taking the primary person to court?
And he's based in New York.
And he's based in New York, and he's open. What his purpose and what his motive is, we don't know, but he's brought out a lot of dirty linen in public. So that's the first thing. There were always suspicions about the meteoric rise of this group, thanks to government initiatives, policies, and even assignments. The airports were an assignment. We haven't got into that at all. I mean, what was the valuation?
The mine development operator in coal miner.
Coal mines. Now, they show a tilt and a favor that's more in tandem with what we call the oligarchical economies rather than what we call free market enterprise. You can't put your legs in both. You can't claim to be a free market player and lean so heavily on government support. Government support translates to a party's support. And a party's support contracts itself to the person at the helm of the party, whom you know as a friend and a buddy. So it all turns out into, I would sadly use the term, into a Russian-type oligarchical cosiness. This is what we are saying, that if you are transparent, if you are not like that, come out with facts. We are ready to listen to you. You may not be ready to listen to others, but we are ready to listen to you, rip them apart. But these facts that have been proved, this ultimate beneficiary. What used to happen is, till 2018, if I'm not mistaken, the securities rules were such that one had to, if SEBI wanted, if the securities authority wanted, you would have to reveal who is the person behind foreign portfolio investment.
Those rules have been diluted considerably.
The rules were changed in 2018. Why? To protect whom? 2018, and now we are reverting back. So SEBI has a very comfortable argument. I changed the rule, and therefore it was not an offense during the period that you are talking about. You have a very comfortable argument that I changed the rule in 2018. You are talking about dealings made between 2018 and 2022, and therefore, since it was not an offense in my terminology, though I was the one who changed it. Now, let's be practical. SEBI would not dare to do it had it not been for a nod or a whip from someone above. And that's a point. I mean, that's the way we look at it.
Okay. One of the allegations that are there, which has come out in the open recently, is that SEBI knew about these allegations of over-invoicing and round-tripping way back in January 2014, before Mr. Narendra Modi had become the Prime Minister in May that year. And this is a letter that was written by the then head of the Directorate of Revenue Intelligence. That's the intelligence wing of the customs authorities in the Ministry of Finance. And this letter was written to Mr. U.K. Sinha, who was the then chairman of the Securities and Exchange Board of India. But SEBI is only now woken up. And in their official communication, including the communication of the Supreme Court, they are saying their investigation started much later. This is indeed something that is worrying, because Mr. U.K. Sinha is currently a director of NDTV, New Delhi Television, which is an Adani-owned media organization. And when he was asked, what did you do? He said, he's something to the effect that, do you expect me to remember what happened 9 years ago?
I'll put it this way. Number one, even without SEBI discovering linkages between who was pumping up the share cost, the share prices, when they hit the roof, some of Adani shares went up by as high as 3,000%. 3,000% in 3 years, 4 years. When they were hitting the roof, SEBI has enough, the stock market has enough filters to ring bells, saying this is worth looking at. They have the systems of oscillating prices have filters. So SEBI could have looked at it suo motu. They could have looked at it suo motu, even without this information. That's my first submission on this round tripping, as they call it. The second is that SEBI has always been a chairman-directed body. By character, SEBI has from day one been driven by the chairman. When it was driven by Mr. Bhave, it was Bhave's direction. He carried the ethos. Bhave had a certain reputation of being very straightforward. Now, you don't need so many filters. Bombay or Mumbai is such a place that if you just keep your ears to the ground, you come to know everything what's going on.
You mean to say that the alarm bells were ringing, but SEBI chose
The alarm bells were ringing on the front of the high oscillation in prices, that something was happening. And B, to find out who was raising the prices is a secondary matter. SEBI could have acted on the prices shooting. I mean, you don't get share prices shooting up by 1,000%, 2,000%, 3,000%. You don't get. Adani Total and Adani Green went up as high. So you don't need external stimuli for that. B, the fact that Mr. Sinha was informed is there on paper. There are certain things where we may have a lot of forgetfulness. There are some things we don't forget. I've been a civil servant. So I would put it this way, that maybe something else would be required to jog his memory.
All right. One of the points that has been made is that SEBI seems to be more concerned about finding out who has gained from the short seller, that's Hindenburg Research, rather than looking into the allegations that have been leveled by Hindenburg. Would you go along with that view?
See, I have my views based on my experience, and I would put it a lot of gut feeling and what I hear. and what I hear and what I discount and what I hear and then discount, and even after discounting, what stays back. Now, based on these impressions, I feel that 3 chairmen of SEBI did not perform the way one would have expected them to perform.
Including the present
Mr.
incumbent?
UK Sinha, Ajay Tyagi, the one who followed him, and during whose period a lot of these price manipulations happened. And the third is the present lady. Now, I have gone publicly saying that the present lady should
Mrs.
resign.
Madhavi Puri
Madhavi Puri Buch. They should resign. Now, what is wrong when you get an organization where you have 3 chairmen, one after the other? Paranjoy, you have to understand that we are in the republic of fear. That is one point. When we bandy around on democracy and democratic principles, we don't seem to admit. There's a lot of fear that if I don't listen, something's going to happen.
Okay. On the 2nd of March, the Supreme Court of India appointed a panel of 6 experts. It was headed by a former judge of the Supreme Court, Justice Sapre. There was another judge. There was the information technology bigwig, Mr. Nandan Nilekani. But there were 3 other members, Mr. K.V. Kamath, Mr. O.P. Bhatt, and another gentleman, a senior advocate, Somashekhar Sundaresan. A petition has been introduced, has been moved to the Supreme Court, saying that these 3 individuals should not have been there. And the petitioner has called for a new committee to be set up. Why? Mr. K.V. Kamath is a former head of the ICICI Bank, and he was his protege of sorts, the former CEO, Ms. Chanda Kochar, has facing various allegations of favoring a particular industrialist, and there's a first information report before the which has been lodged by the Central Bureau of Investigation. Then Mr. Somashekhar Sundaresan, the senior advocate, he has actually represented the Adani Group, including before the SEBI, the Securities and Exchange Board of India. And finally, there is Mr. O.P. Bhatt, who headed India's largest bank, the State Bank of India. He is currently the head of an organization called Greenco, which is a renewable energy company with very close links to the Adani Group. And he was also examined by the Central Bureau of Investigation in connection with a case relating to Vijay Mallya, who's a fugitive. He was a liquor baron and an airline. He ran an airline which went under. What are your views on whether, as the petitioner has argued, should the Supreme Court have a fresh committee, because these 3 individuals, their presence has been questioned, and the view is that there were certain alleged conflicts of interest?
Well, I am a member of parliament, and we follow the principle of division of powers. As bad as it may sound to me, I would hesitate from giving an opinion on this because this is before the Supreme Court. I would only say, in all fairness, that even if people have transactions with someone, and there's no one in India in the financial market, like the State Bank or whatever, in the legal profession, who cannot but have a relation with India's fastest growing number 2 player. You can't have a world like that. I mean, everybody is supposed to have some. Now, it's a question of whether that relation affects your judgment. The petitioner would have to place before the Supreme Court how this association, what we call this sort of thing, would have affected the judgment. Well, there is a bit of disappointment, if one may put it, at the muted first report. But then it was found out after closer examination that it was not as bland as the press made it out.
And the Securities and Exchange Board of India, when it responded, it also pointed out it disagreed with several conclusions of that.
But
that
the press was fed by someone or some group or
that they got a sort of a clean
that they have
sheet.
been given a clean sheet.
In fact, Mr. Adani's press release clearly says that the Supreme Court appointed committee has ruled in our favor. That's what they are saying.
That's impression generated.
And there was no overvaluation, there's no relevance, etc., etc., etc.
Overvaluation is a matter of fact and record. All you need to do is to look at the script. Look at the graph.
Okay.
I mean, it's there. I mean, it's not one person's statement against another.
All right. Mr. Adani says that these allegations have been recycled. And most importantly, right up front, they say, these news reports appear to be yet another concerted bid by Soros-funded interests, meaning George Soros funded interests, supported by a section of the foreign media to revive the meritless Hindenburg report. This is what Mr. Adani has said. Now, as far as the OCCRP is concerned, the Organized Crime and Corruption Reporting Project, they have several donors. And if you go through that list, it's not just the Open Society Foundations headed by Mr. Soros, but there is the Rockefeller brothers. There are government or quasi-government bodies, the Slovak government, the United Kingdom, the government of the United Kingdom, the US aid, the US aid body, the State Department of the United States government, the French government is also involved. So how do you react to Mr. Adani's group, their public relations machinery, as well as the right wing, who are saying this is all orchestrated by George Soros-funded interests?
I wouldn't know. It's very comfortable to hear that there are many public bodies associated with this
OCCRP.
report. The OCCRP report is very comfortable, very comforting to know that this is there. But you see, I'm more bothered about what the message is, not who the messenger was. In my business, it's very difficult to get a message across because there are so many trip holes, there are so many mines all along the way. If somebody has crossed all that to come and give me means metaphorically, us, some amount of information, it's the strength of the information, the solidity of the information that is more important than who the messenger was and what his motives were.
Okay. You know, Mr. Sircar, we really don't know what will the report of the Securities and Exchange Board of India, the final report about its investigations. We also do not know how the Supreme Court of India will react. But the government of the day, headed by Mr. Narendra Modi, has not uttered a word.
They have uttered lots. Every time the matter comes up in Parliament, that part, the Treasury benches are up in arms saying all sorts of things. So, while officially no statement has been issued either by the government or by the party, the way the party behaves, the members behave, make it very clear that any hurt to Adani is a hurt to us.
And to India.
And to India. And since they are India, it's hurt to them. I mean, that sort of a thing. It's a patriotic, it's an insult to patriotism and all that. So let's not get into that. They have on record a lot of material support to Adani. In fact, if I were them and I had to sort of keep my arm's length and disown myself, I would have just kept quiet whenever these things. But every time we raised it, we means the opposition raised it in the House or outside the House, there were a lot of abuses, if I may use the term, lot of ranting against us, a lot of abuses. The big man hasn't opened his mouth because
You mean Prime Minister Narendra Modi?
He hasn't opened his mouth because he opens it on very selective occasions.
Okay. The opposition has been demanded a joint parliamentary committee, but the government seems to be in absolutely no mood to listen to the opposition or accede to your demands.
The bulk of the opposition has asked for a joint parliamentary committee. We have asked directly for a judicial inquiry because we have seen in the case of Bofors and other cases that a JPC takes a lot of time, but ultimately the interest seemed to tire them out. So ours was a little different, but anyway, the common point was both asked for inquiries, detailed inquiries. And since this has not come about, there are these exposés that are coming up, one after the other, that can't be denied. That can't be denied. And the Supreme Court is not bound to accept in toto the report given by a committee set up by it. It's only to help it arrive at a conclusion in a very complicated world of finance and law. It's only for that. But there are other options open to the court.
All right, Mr. Sircar, thank you very much.
Thank you.
For giving the viewers of this program and those who are watching you on AdaniWatch your views. We'll have to wait and watch what happens, how the Supreme Court will act, what the Securities and Exchange Board of India will do, what the political leadership will do in the run-up to the general elections.
Optimism. That's all I could say.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You've just heard Jawhar Sircar. He's a member of the upper house of Parliament in India, the Rajya Sabha, and he's been speaking to us about the Adani Group and the new sets of allegations against the group. And we can wait and watch what happens in the coming days, in the coming weeks, and the coming months. Thank you for being with us.